Sometimes I take the long way home to see what I've not been missing, to be nearer those things I can do without. I fulfill that need for distance and misspent time, semicircles in exchange for straight lines. I really do have almost 2 full-time jobs. I usually get up about 7 in the morning and get in my office around 7:30 and check my phone messages and things and start working at about 8:30. And I try to be home by about 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and then I spend a good part of the rest of the day writing. I probably spend as much time being a poet as being a dentist at this point. A poet is what I am, and a dentist is what I do. So I really see the dentistry as a profession that I take very seriously and work hard at. But I was writing poetry long before I ever thought of being a dentist, and it's something that's really part of who I am. I probably would be described as a lyric poet in that most of what I write tells some sort of a story, but I think what drives a lot of my work is that I'm just a really close observer of life and of people and things that are going on that I find interesting. One of the things that defines a poet is that he thinks in very unusual ways and sees the connection between things that other people might not connect. I can watch something that's going on in nature and somehow I'm able to connect my internal environment to my external environments. At my window, a red feeder suspended with hope beckons to the secret places. Weeks in vigil without visit, then arriving like moments frequent and floating, 2 tiny wings in harmonic perfection. The poem was structured in a way to suggest the movement of the birds, which is very halting and quick. Some people would refer to that as a concrete poem. In other words, there's a shape to the poem or a structure to the way it's on the page that adds more meaning to the words. Still, then sprung like an arrow from a new-strung bow, they dare to pause. Ruby throat quivers with drinking. Emerald feathered back shimmers in tracing sunlight. Poetry is something that has a structure that suggests a rhythm where breaths should be taken, and also sets apart groups of words in interesting ways that might, in fact, add just a little extra sparkle. Some people write in longer lines, some people write in very short lines. And it's possible that the meaning of the poem might be enhanced by the way that the lines are set up. In the ribs of trees bared by November, they flow down the faces of this hill until the sun is free of the treetops, until they melt into the crucible of Willow Pond. I think where I live has a great deal of influence on me as an artist and as a person, because Shelter Island is a very unusual place in that there's a beautiful natural environment here. I think that a poet has tools just like a carpenter would, and I try always to write with a fountain pen. I just enjoy the way that that feels in my hands, and I don't write any other time with a fountain pen except when I'm writing poetry. And I can sit around for a couple of weeks and not write anything, and then all of a sudden in one day 2 or 3 things come that might wind up being poems that might be published somewhere nice. I've become more comfortable with the speed that I write things at and try not to over-edit them too much, because I feel once you're taken away from that emotional moment and that insight when you started to write, it's hard to go back and make it better and not also run the risk of making it worse. Thank you. My wife, Karen, is absolutely my biggest supporter and fan, and she's the person who sees everything that I write first. And that's a very important thing to me because I'm showing her something that to me in that moment is very precious. I thought that I was here because you all wanted to be dentists. When I go to schools and speak to kids, I try to make them not feel intimidated by poetry. And one of the things they can do to help that is to write things on their own.
Excellent. That's wonderful.
I always feel if I can influence kids a little bit, that's a nice thing. But if I can influence 1 or 2 of them a lot and make them believe in themselves, or maybe some kid who's written poetry and never shared it with anybody, to feel a sense of confidence. So I tell kids that you have to fall in love with the process of writing and enjoy doing it. And what happens to the writing after it's finished is really going to be up to someone else. So there's a great deal to be gained from reading poetry, and it's an adventure. You have to look to find things that you like, and you may read things that you don't like at times as well. But when you find something that really strikes you, it's a magical moment.